Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I am the founder of Forward Partners, and I'm joined by my partner in podcasting, Emily Graysteele. Emily Graysteele, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the art of giving feedback.
Okay.
We're talking about how leaders can often struggle to effectively give feedback.
Yeah,
right?
it's not easy.
Because it's a struggle, right?
Yep.
Then we tend to kind of avoid it entirely.
People don't like doing things they're not good at.
Right.
This is a new information for me.
Until it's like blaringly obvious and you can no
Yes.
longer avoid it.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about that.
So this is the human growth side of leadership, right? Are we checking the boxes of getting the job done?
Mm-hmm.
But then there is, how am I helping the people around me grow? And that's a real responsibility of leaders. But the way we grow is through constant feedback, right? It is through hey, you did a thing. Here's a way to do it a little better. How can I help? Let's partner on this. Let's grow. Let's do these, right? That's something we need to be doing, but it's also very time consuming. And if we're not good at it, we avoid it entirely. And so it's funny how often I'll run into someone will have a yearly review and think they're doing fine because they haven't heard anything bad. And then they get to the yearly review and they're like, what happened? Why is my boss suddenly dropping all this on me that I've been doing wrong for a year and didn't say a word?
Stored it up.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden here it is. And even more extreme, you see it sometimes when people get fired. They didn't really provide feedback along the way. They just got more and more and more frustrated until they couldn't stand it, so they fired the person, right?
Right.
And I think the rule of thumb is a person should never be surprised if they're fired. If we're providing constant feedback, then they have the ability to understand what's going on and hopefully to fix it.
Right, because really that ultimately is better for everyone.
Absolutely it is. Like if you can help a person grow, and I always tell people, if you're to the point where someone absolutely has to be fired, fine, let them go. Like if we have done the things, but if we're not ready to fire them, it is our job to help them grow. And that is a good outcome for everybody, because here's the thing is there is the thing you accomplish within your business by doing it, or your organization, or whatever it is. There's the impact you have. There's also then the legacy of every person you lead. They may not be working for you in 20 years, right? But what does their life look like? Does it look better because they learned something while you were the leader?
Right.
Did you invest in them and
That's
grow
the best
them?
form of marketing, right? I mean, if you can
That's
have
it.
someone to say, yeah, I worked there and it was awesome, and then I moved to the next place and they helped me do that. They helped me grow to move to the next place. And then that encourages the next people that want to work there because they know it's a place of growth.
It creates this great cycle when you become known as a place that does help people grow, but it requires constant feedback. It is not something we can say for a yearly review. It's not something we can say for even an every 6-month thing that we're going to sit and talk. It is an ongoing thing. And part of it being this ongoing dialogue is it pulls some of the stigma away from it, right? Because some feedback we may need to give might be negative. It might be, hey, here's the thing you're really not good at, or you really need to work on, right? That can feel terrible.
Yeah, I know that we say sometimes like checking that box of communication, right? Saying, okay, we sent an email, we've communicated. I feel like setting that yearly review is another way to do that.
Yes.
Not saying that's a bad thing to do, right? Have a yearly review.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
But make sure you have checkpoints in between, that you're giving feedback constantly, and you're not just checking the box of, oh, we have a yearly review scheduled, so that's fine. We'll talk about it then.
Absolutely. It can become a crutch if that's all you're doing is to say, well, we've got it. We're fine. This is more, we are normalizing feedback.
Yeah.
Because what that can do is pull some of the sting out of it. If I never said anything to you as far as something we need to improve on, and I just dropped in one day and I'm like, here's 33 things you have really been jacking up. Like, that's going to hurt. That is not going to feel good. You're not going to process that well. Versus whenever we encounter it, going, hey, could we work on this thing?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an attack.
Yeah. And you and I are always, as we're developing new things and creating stuff, I love creating things with you because it always is this back and forth process because we're always pushing each other to make something better. And it's not offensive when I go, hey, what if we move this over here and change this?
Right.
It's not
and we
saying,
have the vocabulary to do that, and we do it enough that it's common and it makes sense, and I don't feel attacked.
And that's, thank goodness, that's what we're after, is that common piece, right?
Yeah.
That we are a place where it is okay to give feedback. It's okay to discuss things and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Make sure that we are constantly growing and we're always on the same page about what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And the other piece of it is I think when we give feedback, sometimes like if we're afraid of it, we'll give the feedback and then, like you said, we'll check the box and we don't ever really follow up on it. and it just kind of continues to be a problem. And so I think there has to be I'm going to give you some feedback, and then we're going to circle back in a week, and we're going to talk about this again. And then we're going to circle back a week after that and talk about it again. Not to beat a dead horse, but to really say, are we actually making the progress that we agreed we need to make?
And not just using I did it once and you didn't fix it, so now I am going to fire you. Good luck.
So I think constant feedback, so it's just a normalized part of the culture, and also really making sure that it's not, when we say feedback, it's not all negative.
Yeah.
Some feedback is positive, right? If we are pointing out 33 things they're doing right, then the 2 things we need to talk about that they're doing wrong are not as bad. But if all we focus on is those 2, and we don't ever mention the other 33, they're internally going, what about all the other stuff? You know, they just assume there's something wrong there too.
Right.
And so providing that positive reinforcement as well. And
because I definitely, if I only get negative, I'm like, there was good in there. I know it wasn't all terrible. And so you can discount really quickly the bad stuff because you're like, clearly you weren't actually paying attention. And
we've talked before about the fact that encouragement, like I think we can focus too much on the negative sometimes as leaders because we do see how things can improve. But focusing on the positive and really giving that encouragement, that is a move that costs us nothing.
Yeah.
That allows us to build our people up, to help them feel a sense of accomplishment. And so we should engage in that often. And so that's a part of this continual feedback, is the positive when we see it, and then some of the negative when we see it, and not waiting and storing it up.
Definitely.
Because the other side of this is when we're giving feedback, are we giving feedback to help them grow, or are we giving feedback in a way because we're just frustrated and we don't know what else to do, and we've been storing up that anger and we just explode on them,
like firing is already on the table and you're just doing this so that whenever you fire them, it's justified.
Well, I think you see this in relationships a lot, like even marriage. And we always talk about how leadership, everything comes back to marriage and parenting. I mean, I've been married 23 years. You've got like 6-7 years. We have probably both fallen into a situation where we needed to give some feedback to our spouse. We didn't do it and continued to get more and more angry about it until we finally gave the feedback in a very, very unhelpful
when you've had
way.
the same fight like 20 times and you're like, oh my gosh, can we not fix this?
Yes. And when you finally give it in that explosive way, it does damage. It doesn't actually do good. And so the other side of this is thinking about the way we give feedback matters.
Right.
That's
true.
Part of the consistent piece of it is if we're constantly giving feedback, it doesn't have a chance to build up pressure. It's almost this, I've never thought of it that way, but it is almost this constant releasing of pressure. Because if you're doing something wrong, it creates pressure within the organization, within the relationship. And if I don't say anything, that just continues to build until it becomes a problem.
Right.
But if I just say something, if it builds up a little pressure and I say something, hey, could we improve this thing? We just release that pressure, right? And now it's not continuing to build.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
I like that idea of thinking about it that way. So I think if you are leading a team, if you're leading people, get good and get good. Wow.
Get good.
Wow.
Just end it there.
Get good at giving feedback. I think really focus on giving consistent feedback constantly. It is just part of the culture. It's part of what we do as we improve and we grow, and it's not a negative. Learning that we need to improve on something does not mean we're broken. It means that we need to get better at something, and that's part of the process. And so you create a culture of constant feedback, of constant communication, both positive and when it needs to be negative. But we're handling it consistently so that we're not having to deal with it later in a big explosion. So there is a real art to that, and it really is just that consistency. All right. Thank you for bringing this idea. If people want to send us questions, ideas, quotes, where do they send those to?
To lab@forwardpartners.net.
Lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find us on the socials where we are giving away tons of leadership content completely free, where do they find that?
@ForwardPartner.
@ForwardPartner.
Yep.
Thank you for doing this. Ben, thank you for producing Wilco Workspaces. Thank you for partnering with us on this. And we will see you right here in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.